everyone. I hope you've had a great week. This week we are going to be talking through lessons 113 to 116. So let's get started. This week you're going to need your lessons manual, the student worksheets book, the math card games manual with game cards, two rulers or two pencils. Those materials are not included in the Right Start math materials. You will need 4 cards, index cards, or small pieces of paper with the words north, south, east, and west, each word on a separate piece of paper or a separate card. You will need the 4-in-1 ruler. You will need the fractions chart, the goniometer, and a 30-60 triangle and 45 triangle. This week, your child is going to continue working on various forms of measurements. Let's get started by looking at lesson 113. For the warm-up, your child is going to complete the top part of worksheet 92. Now, the rest of the lesson is going to be working together, in a sense, through the rest of worksheet 92. Now, there are some things to remember as you get through and going through this lesson. First of all, make sure you give your child quiet minutes to think and to solve their problem on their own as much as possible. Don't give them too many hints. Then have your child, when they're completed with that problem, have your child check to make sure their answer makes sense. And then finally, have them explain their answers to you and how they got those answers to solidify that into their minds. Now, for problem 1, you're going to start by having your child read through the problem a couple times before attempting to solve the problem. Now, there are a number of ways to solve the problem, and there are 3 solution options shown in the lesson manual. For problem 2, again, start by having your child read through the problem a couple times before solving. And you're going to want to have your child, or you're going to want to remind your child that 1 liter weighs 1,000 grams. Now, this is going to be important information for your child to solve the problem. Now, one method of solving the problem is shown in the lesson manual. Again, have your child explain how they solve this problem to you. Just as before, for problem 3, have your child read through that problem a couple times before they solve. You may even want to ask a couple questions prior to solving. For example, in this particular problem, they are finding the perimeter for a regular hexagon flower garden. And so you're going to ask them maybe, what is perimeter? So that they know exactly what it is. Now, for your reminder, perimeter means measurement around. Remember, peri means around and meter means measure. So perimeter means measurement around. You may also want to ask your child how many sides a hexagon has, since they're finding the perimeter of a hexagon flower garden. We need to make sure your child knows that a hexagon has 6 sides. Again, have your child solve that problem and explain how they solved it. For problem 4, again, start by having your child read through the problem a couple times before solving. The solution is listed in the lesson manual. You're going to do the same thing again for problem 5. The math card game for this lesson is Equal Quotients Game, which is a game that you played last week. Now, if your child is still working on learning their multiplication math facts, definitely play another game to work on those facts and get those down. Let's go ahead and turn to lesson 114. For the warm-up, you're going to draw lines as shown on the top of the first page of the lesson. Then you're going to ask questions to your child. Ask them questions about parallel lines, perpendicular, and then non-parallel perpendicular lines. Now, for this section called right angles, you're going to teach your child what a right angle is. And in case you've forgotten, a right angle is a 90-degree angle. So you have one line straight across, one line up and down with a 90-degree angle in between. Now, that being said, your angles or your lines can go in any direction. This is always going to be a right angle regardless of where the lines are directed, just so you know. But now I want you to take a notice something in the middle of the paragraph under right angles. A trick to kind of help remember what a right angle is. It says, it is called a right angle because when one line is horizontal, the other line seems to stand up right, and right being the word that we're clinging to make a right angle. Look at the section called Making Turns. This section is a fun activity that my kids absolutely enjoyed. In fact, they asked me to add more questions and more instructions to keep this activity going longer. You're going to have your child start by looking forward, and then you're going to have them turn halfway all the way around, or quarter, or completely around. So you're going to give them different directions and tell them how far to turn. In the section called Measuring Angles, you're going to use 2 rulers or pencils, or I'm going to use tally sticks to show you because I don't have those handy. And you're going to start by having them put together like this. And then you're going to slowly raise one of them, and you're going to have your child tell you to stop when they get to that right angle. Now, it is easier, even though I'm doing this upright, it is easier to do when your rulers or your pencils are on the table, so you can move that one a little smoother. You're also going to want to let your child know at this point that a right angle it measures at 90 degrees. And you're going to differentiate between degrees in measurement of angles and degrees in measurement of temperature. You are then going to rotate those rulers or tally sticks so that they show not just 90 degrees, but 180 degrees, and then down to 270 degrees, and then back up to the 360 degrees. And you may want to do this several different times until your child gets very comfortable with those numbers, as they're going to need to know them and be very comfortable with them. Now, for the next section called Relating Directions and Degrees, you're going to want to have 4 small pieces of paper. Now, I used index cards, so north, south, east, and then west. I wrote these on different cards, and then I put them on the walls or on the floor next to my child, facing that particular direction. So when my child was facing north, that's where the north card was. When my child faced south, I put the card behind them so that they knew what they were. Then you're going to have your child turn various degrees and then ask them what direction they are then facing. So the first one, they're going to face north, and they're going to turn 90 degrees right. And then they're going to tell you the direction, which should be east. And they will be able to tell you that direction because they will be able to see it on the card. Now, again, this was a fun activity for my kids. So we did this several different renditions of it. You may even want, and I did it in my family, you may even want to have your child ask you to take a turn, and they will give you different directions, tell you to turn various degrees, and then ask you for the direction you're facing. Now, you may want to make a mistake, either turn the wrong degrees or tell them the wrong answer to see if they can catch your mistake. Go ahead then and have your child complete worksheet 93. The answers are included on the lesson manual. Now, there is not a math card game listed for this lesson, so make sure you play a game to keep up those math facts. If your child is still working on their multiplication math facts, definitely play a multiplication math card game. Let's go ahead and turn to lesson 115. Now, if your lesson manual was printed in 2016 or before, there is a correction for this lesson. So you're going to want to make those necessary changes before you start teaching this lesson. Now, the warm-up section is going to have you have your child do that fun activity that you did in the previous lesson. And then the second paragraph is going to have your child calculate various fractions. In the section called Centimeters on a Ruler, you're going to have your child view the centimeter side of the ruler. So you're going to have them see that on one side of the ruler, the centimeters are divided in half. So here's one hole, and there's only one break in there, so it's 1/2. But on the other side of the centimeter side, this centimeter is divided up into 10 segments. Then you're going to get the fraction chart out, and you're going to have your child point to 1/2 and 1/10 to kind of solidify that. Then your child is going to work through worksheet 94, and they're actually going to answer the first 3 questions on their own if it's possible for them to do that. Then you're going to go over their answers and discuss anything that they miss. Now, towards the top of the second page of the lesson, you're going to have your child write the equation. It's right under that dark line. Write the equation. L equals 6 and 6/10 plus 7 and 7/10 equals 13 and 13/10. And you're going to have them look that up on the ruler. So if you're going to use the centimeter side with the tenths, and we're going to start with the 6 and 6/10, and this is going to be really tight. I'm not going to be able to show that too much. And then you're going to add to that 7 and 7/10. So they're going to go on out and look at the 7 and 7/10, and they're going to discover that it will actually calculate out on the ruler to 14 and 3/10. And then you're going to discuss why that's different than 13 and 13/10. By seeing this problem on the ruler, your child is actually being introduced to adding mixed numbers. Now, level E is going to work on adding mixed numbers more. However, if your child is expressing interest in this topic, feel free to explore it with your child. Then your child is going to complete the rest of the worksheet 94 on their own if they're able. And then this worksheet is also going to be needed in lesson 116. The suggested math card game for this lesson is Corners with Tenths. Now, there is not a blog for this lesson, for that particular game. Also, if your child is still working on their multiplication math facts, play a multiplication math card game as well. Well, go ahead and turn to lesson 116. If your lesson manual was printed in 2020 or before, there is a correction listed in this lesson, so make sure you make those changes prior to teaching it. For the warm-up section, you're going to review fractions and angles. The next section is called the goniometer, and that is how it's pronounced, goniometer. And here's what a goniometer looks like. Now, mine looks a little different probably from what yours might look like because mine has numbers up here. The current ones that they're selling, this is all plain. So if yours is all plain, that's perfect, no worries. We never use this to measure except to measure angles. So you will see this is where we measure the angle. You're going to use the goniometer to measure different angles on the two triangles. So the first triangle we have is the 30-60 triangle. And what you're going to do, what your child is going to do, is place the goniometer on the corner of that. And they're going to actually measure that, that angle. And they're going to find that this angle here is 30 degrees. They're going to measure all of the different angles on all of those triangles. Examples is shown at the bottom of the first page of the lesson. Now, on the top of the second page of the lesson, you're going to discuss the right angle, which is 90 degrees. You're going to discuss the acute angle, which is less than 90 degrees. And I kind of helped, and you probably did this too. As you were learning, you probably heard this, but I helped my kids remember that acute angle is small because they would always say, oh, isn't that acute angle? So kind of helped them remember what the acute angle looks like. Angles that measure over 90 degrees are called obtuse angles. Then you will see a section underneath that talking about triangles and how they are classified by their angles. So if a triangle has one obtuse angle, it's called an obtuse triangle. If a triangle has a right angle, it's called a right triangle. And if all three angles are less than 90 degrees, it is called an acute triangle. Your child is then going to finish worksheet 95, and then they're going to measure all of those angles on the worksheet and then answer the questions underneath those triangles. Now, these triangles are actually similar to a previous lesson's triangles, so they may look a little familiar, but in this case, your child is going to measure those angles. The answers for that worksheet is listed in the lesson manual. The math card game listed for this lesson is Make 16 Cents, and we do have a blog for that. It is called 2020 Summer Game Number 10, Make 16 Cents. Now, if your child is still learning their multiplication math facts, definitely play another game focusing on multiplication. Well, that's it for the week. If you have any questions or concerns about a lesson, or if your child is struggling with something, give us a call or email us. We're here to help. I look forward to seeing you next week as we walk through lessons 117 to 120. Have a great week, everybody.